Welcome back to our four-part series on Mashiach, the Messiah, and the Messianic redemption. So far, we've learned about the basic principle of Mashiach and the Messianic era, and also last week we touched on who is Mashiach. The million-dollar question in Judaism, though, is when is Mashiach coming? The Talmud teaches, as you can see in source number 1, that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who was a great Talmudic sage, asked Mashiach himself, when are you coming? Because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was such a spiritual individual, he was able to have that perception of what was going on in the heavens. So he used the opportunity to ask Mashiach, when are you coming? So Mashiach responded to him, today. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi waited and waited. The day is going by, and as the sun is set, he's very disappointed. Mashiach didn't come. So he uses the opportunity to ask Elijah the prophet, why didn't Mashiach come like he promised? He said he was coming today. And so Elijah answered back, today, if the Jewish people will hearken to his words and prepare for him coming. If you take a look at source number 2, there is a preordained date that Mashiach's coming, and it is a heavily guarded secret. The only thing written about that date is that it will happen in its time. God will eventually send the Messiah, whether the world is ready or not. Yet the collected merit of the Jewish people can usher him in earlier. So the idea is that there is a preordained date that no matter what, Jewish people, the world community is ready or not, here he comes. But if the world community is ready earlier, then Mashiach will come earlier. The Talmud speaks actually harshly about those who try to calculate the redemption, who try to work out mathematically or find codes in the Bible as to when that end date will actually be. Why does the Talmud speak harshly about those who try to calculate the exact time? Well, there's a few reasons for that. Number 1, errors would cause national disappointment. Imagine you get everybody ready and excited that Mashiach is coming this and this day or this and this week, and then he doesn't show up. There's national disappointment and despair, and people will lose faith in Mashiach's actually coming. Another reason why the Talmud was against calculating an exact date was because it gives likelihood for false messiahs to declare themselves, look, I'm the Messiah. It said, it was foretold that it will come in this and this a day, this and this week, so I'm here to present myself. So number 1, because it would cause national disappointment. Number 2, because it gives opportunity for false messiahs to present themselves. And another reason is that we learned earlier, the Rambam, the famed medieval sage Maimonides, says that it is a mitzvah, it is an obligation to await Mashiach's coming every day. So if a person has in their mind that Mashiach is not coming till such and such a day, he won't wait for him today, because in his mind, Mashiach isn't coming until next week or next month or next year. So the idea is that we have to wait for Mashiach's coming every day and not make specific forecasts as to when Mashiach is coming. Some say, though, some of our Jewish sages say that this prohibition doesn't apply nowadays, that it only applied to earlier generations. Why did it only apply to earlier generations? Because in earlier times, if they heard that Mashiach wasn't coming for another 1,000 years, 2,000 years, or 3,000 years, it would cause anguish that Mashiach was so far off. But now that the world is getting closer, on the brink of redemption, there's no prohibition at all. The Malbim, a famed 19th century sage, says an enlightening analogy. He says, imagine you have a father and son who are traveling a long distance. At the beginning of the journey, the son asks the father, when are they going to arrive at their destination? Dad, are we there yet? As they near the town, the son takes the same question. The son asks the same question to the father. This time the father gives an answer and said it'll just be a short while longer. The analogy is pretty clear. So too, as the redemption nears, right, the idea of forecasting things will become more apparent in the world that Mashiach is ready to come. The truth is that the redemption is an unfolding process, one that we can even see traces unfolding right as we speak. The Chafetz Chaim, a famed early 20th century sage, said that even a blind person can see that we are on the brink of Mashiach. All signs indicate that he's not far off. A contemporary scholar, Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, says that exile is nearing an end. We have been told that the year 6000 is going to be when Mashiach must come, the year 6000 on the Jewish calendar. And he writes, the conditions for him coming have already been fulfilled. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, countless times throughout his leadership, announced and publicized that Mashiach is imminent. The sages laid out a map of how world history would unfold from the days of Adam all the way until Mashiach would come. The world is described in the Torah as being created in 6 days. The sages draw a parallel between these 6 days and 6,000 years of world history that would conclude in Mashiach coming. In other words, that just as the world was created in 6 days and God rested on the 7th day, so too the world will exist for 6,000 years and the world will experience a time of rest following that. An eternal rest, an eternal Sabbath known as the year of Mashiach. If you take a look in text number 3, you'll see it laid out clearly. In the Talmud, the first 2,000 years from Adam until the year 2000 after Adam were days that were known as the era of nothingness, the years of nothingness, because then the world was in a semi-chaotic state. You had world in upheaval going through the flood of Noah, through the Tower of Babel, and through the Jewish people being subjugated in Egyptian slavery. The year 2000 to the year 4000 on the Jewish calendar were known as the years of Torah. What that means is not only was the Torah given during that time, but both holy temples also stood during that time. It was the year where Torah and the Jewish people were very powerful. It was in their crux. Then the year 4000 to the year 6000 on the Jewish calendar is known as the era of Mashiach, the years of the Messiah. Because Mashiach, this is the time period which is most apropos for Mashiach to come at any moment. And so the sages of the Talmud give various omens that will alert the Jewish people that Mashiach's coming is very near. Take a look in text number 4, and you'll see that it begins with a bit of a downward spiral. The downward spiral of events begins with large segments of the Jewish community being unfamiliar with their roots. People will no longer have respect for authority, and there will be no one who can provide correction. Wisdom shall become putrid, truth abandoned, the government will become godless, the academies places of immorality, and the pious denigrated. So along with these sort of negative predictions come also some positive predictions as well. Besides the signs of despair, the sages offer some positive signs that the imminence of Mashiach is right away. Number one is that there will be a renewal in Torah study, that the far-reaching dissemination of Jewish mystical tradition will have flowed throughout the world, and also the opening of the gates of wisdom above and the well springs of wisdom from below. The wisdom from above refers to the promulgation of Torah at a whole new level, and the well springs, the opening of the well springs of wisdom from below refer to marvelous discoveries in science and advancements in technology. One of the most interesting and important texts you could see in text number 5 is from the Zohar. The Zohar teaches that our oral tradition teaches that the world as we know it will last for 6,000 years, as we said earlier. Each millennium parallels a day in creation. that's described in the Torah. In the 7th millennium, which corresponds to the Sabbath, the universe will go into a period of Sabbath, of renewal. One interesting thing that it says is that 600 years into the 6th millennium, which would be the year 5600 on the Jewish calendar, that the gates of the supernal wisdom from above will open. They will open together with the well springs from below. This will begin a process which will prepare the world for the 7th generation. Now, keep in mind, the world right now, we're in the Jewish calendar, we're in the year 5777. And what that means is that on the cosmic clock, we are very near to the year 6000. One of the things that happens in my home before the Sabbath, and one of the things that the Zohar predicts, is that no matter what time Shabbos starts, no matter what time the Sabbath comes in, whether it's 5 p.m. or whether it's 8 p.m., it's a rush in a Jewish home in the afternoon. Doesn't matter if it starts earlier, which could understandably be a lot of rush. You have to come home early from work and set up everything up very quickly. But if it's starting 8, 9 o'clock at night, somehow, magically, it's still, the house is a bustle and everything is in a mode of rush. So too, says the Zohar, that as we near the year 6000, which is on the cosmic clock, Friday afternoon, things will begin to speed up. And that means that Torah dissemination will increase exponentially, as will science and technology. And the Zohar compares it to the days of Noah. It says that just as in the 600th year of Noah's life, the flood began and the waters from above started raining down, and the floodgates, the well springs from below, also began to rise up, so too in the year 5600, which corresponds to, on the secular calendar to 1840, that the well springs, the floodgates will open up. Now, that doesn't mean a flood in the physical sense. It means a flood in the spiritual sense. The mystics teach that the floodgates from above mean that Torah will be disseminated and released in a way unparalleled as it was in the past, and that technology will increase first at a little trickle, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, until it'll be an unstoppable, raging deluge. When I think about world history, it's interesting to note sort of the transformation of how Torah and, in particular, technology, science and technology, have sort of developed and integrated themselves into world consciousness. After the death of Archimedes, which was in around 200 BCE, advancements in science took quite some time to start back up. Until around the 1500s with Copernicus and Galileo, scientific discovery was relatively limited. In the late 1600s and early 1700s, Sir Isaac Newton solidified the work of his predecessors and encapsulated the primary pillars of science into distinct fundamental laws using mathematics. The mid-1700s saw the Industrial Revolution sweep across Europe and then peak in the mid-1800s when it spread to the United States as well. So this period saw unprecedented growth in inventions and technology. So beginning at 1840, the real floodgates started to open technologically, which flowed and only expanded as we entered into the 20th century as well. Let's zero in on the 20th century for a moment. The 20th century, something began to happen that is basically miraculous. New theories and approaches to looking at the universe were initiated that transformed the way that mankind saw space and time, mind and matter. As the decades progressed after 1900 on the secular calendar, there was an explosion of knowledge and an explosion of technological advances as well. From the Garden of Eden until the year 1900, the main mode of transportation was a horse and buggy, like King David and Julius Caesar. You could have taken anybody out from the times of King David or the times of Julius Caesar and dropped them in the year 1000 or the year 1500, and the culture shock that they would experience would be fairly limited. From 1900, we saw the invention of the automobile, followed by the airplane and the jet plane, until finally, 69 years later, 60 years later, rocket ships, and eventually the space shuttle. Communications also spread. It went from the telegraph, then to the telephone, then to the cellular phone, then to Skype, until now a person can literally talk to anyone, anywhere in the world from their smartphone. Medical research is moving so fast, is progressing so fast, that by the time a book is written and goes to print, the information has already become obsolete. This century saw animals cloned, surgeries performed through lasers and robots, and operations carried out on a fetus while still in its mother's womb. The trend continues nowadays at an even faster rate. It says that 1 week's worth of New York Times that's printed nowadays has more information in it than a person in the 1800s was exposed to in their entire life. Additionally, it says that this year alone, that there will be 4 exabytes of new and unique information that will be generated, which is more than the sum total of all information generated in the first 5,000 years of world history combined. So we can see, as the Zohar predicted, that starting in the year 5600, 1840, was a time where the floodgates really opened. In fact, it's interesting to note that Pulitzer Prize-winning commentator George Will published in Newsweek magazine that the year 1820 begins the modern era, an era distinct from all of history in the past. We said that one of the goals of Mashiach is that the natural will reflect the supernatural, which means that as Mashiach gets nearer, that science itself, the study of nature, will even reveal some Jewish or spiritual concepts as well. Relativity, quantum mechanics, the uncertainty principle, and the anthropic principle are just a glimmer of how we see that taking place, how we see that merge coming together. The scientific discoveries are the lower waters that are mentioned in the Zohar. The upper waters are the flood of Torah knowledge that has burst forth over the past few centuries and began to proliferate at an exponential level. The purpose of the world was created to make it a dwelling place for the Almighty, and this is achieved that when the coarsest creation, when nature itself, will reveal the supernatural. As time progresses near the year 6000, Torah insights too will become able to penetrate in ways and spread across the world in ways that they had never been done before, to all the lowest levels that they had been unable to reach in previous generation. In fact, the proliferation of Torah can actually be seen right now as we speak. The fact that we together, thousands of people from around the world, are able to study some Torah together right now is a fulfillment of that messianic prophecy. So thanks for tuning in and being part of the fulfillment of a messianic prophecy. As we mentioned, just to conclude, we said that the whole world history operates on sort of a cosmic clock, that just like the world was created in 6 days and rested on the 7th day, so too that the world will last for at most 6,000 years, and then after that go into a period of Mashiach, of the Messianic redemption. That's the latest time. So we, in the year 5777, who are on the cosmic clock corresponding to Friday afternoon, have to realize something. In Jewish law, it explains that it is a mitzvah, it is a good idea if a person would like to bring in Shabbos early. In other words, you don't have to wait until the sun goes down and passes down below the horizon. You can accept Shabbos even while it's still a little bit sunny out. As we near the redemption, this principle can have application to our own life as well. Just as on Friday afternoon, it's a mitzvah to accept Shabbos a little bit early, so too, as we near Shabbos, as we near Mashiach on the cosmic clock, through our deeds, we can bring Mashiach a little bit sooner. We can accept Shabbos a little bit early. So why don't we do something in our own lives that will help implement that into reality?